It'll be good.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and good night, everybody in the world. Talking here in Barretos, and it's a pleasure for us here in Barretos in Brazil to start our Ircad live in the world. This is very nice today to have this live to talk about the fantastic world of innovation. And this is a very interesting opportunity that the Ircads in the world, the units in the world are together to spread these new possibilities to put everybody together in this new situation for everybody, this connection. So we try to put everybody together. This is the idea about the Ircads, to put everybody. So you have the people from Taiwan in Ircad, Ircad Africa, Ircad Strasbourg, and Ircad Barretos and Ircad Rio together. So here we have friends, very, very amazing friends to talk. And it's a pleasure for me and Armando and all the team to discuss today about the innovation. So Armando, we are with you, and thank you again for this opportunity. And we expect new ideas to put everybody together in this possibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Luis. Good morning, good evening, and good night. Well, it's a great pleasure being here for this session related to innovation, where we have very important guests and with a huge experience in the field of innovation. And they built something in a world very important for the surgical units. And more than that, we are going to have a pleasure to have their expertise exchanged here. And so this is why I would like to introduce our good friend, Dennis McWilliams. And for those who doesn't know him, he's, well, he's like a cowboy. He's in Texas now, as very similar to Barretos. We had the concept of horn, but it's okay. Probably he's gonna do something at the end, and his his field of innovation is related to life science. He's a venture partner at Sante Ventures, an entrepreneur, and also he has a lot of work in his background. Just for the surgeons, he is the guy that founded Apollo in 2005. You know, that new machine that can do bariatric surgery by endoscopy? This is the guy. In the other hand, we have Vivian Hutcher, and she has a very beautiful history related to Ircad. I'm not going to spoiler now. And in the other side, in the world, Asia, we have our good friend, Dean of Ircad Taiwan, Wayne Huan. So we are going to start this chat. So it's free. You can interact with each other. Just put your ideas. I'm just starting with some questions. And in fact, we want to know from the bottom of your heart how you start that. What moved you to do this kind of job? What was your inspiration? Dennis, can you explain to us, please?
Yes. Yeah, obrigado. Thank you, Armando and Luis, for inviting us here today. And I'm sorry that we're not together in person. It's always a lot of fun talking innovation and doing things together. But very happy to be talking to you and our friends today. So yes, so innovation for me. I've always wanted to be involved in the field of innovation. I've always loved technology. I grew up as a aerospace engineer, was very interested in advanced space flight and engineering and those things. and pursued a degree in that, and then just got very interested in technology in general. As I was growing up, computers were the new big thing, and we were all very excited about the innovation that was developing around us. So I dedicated my career to wanting to do things in innovation. I actually was not planning to go into healthcare. So medicine was not on my radar screen. I had very little medical training, but started to see the fascinating innovation that was happening both on the biotechnology side with the invention of some of the new biotech techniques and things that were being developed there, and also what was happening in medical devices and surgery and the innovation that was happening there. So very early in my career, I wanted to be involved in innovation, and I felt everybody has a different role in innovation. Some people are the surgeons who are doing the procedures who come up with the ideas, and some people are the engineers that know how to design and pull these things together. My role is more, I guess, like a shepherd. So my job is to find the new technology and then help get that technology onto the market and helping patients. So I dedicated my career to that and still do that today.
Okay, great. So, but in the other hand, we have some with medical background, and she jumps to innovation area. Besides, she's specialized in pediatrician now, if I'm not wrong. Vivian, can you explain for us a little bit about your life in this field of innovation? What happened to you?
That's what a lot of people wonder, what happened. There was so much promise. So I was early on, I was inspired by patient care because my mom is a family practitioner, and I just saw how much wonderful care she was taking of her patients, and it really inspired me to pursue also a pathway in medicine. Early on, I always thought I was going to be a practicing surgeon, and that was the whole career path until I got to Ircad, and I got to know a lot of inspiring people, such as Jacques Marisco, but also Silvana Peretta, and Lee Swanstrom, and Bernard Alemania, and they really encouraged me. Not, everyone would always say like, oh, you try to be different or unique. They never taught me to be different. They always said, follow your own path. And one of the things that I found was that I loved being in diverse professional settings. So working with engineers and academic scientists and physicians and students, and kind of a very multi-cultural type of environment, and working more on the technology side of healthcare. And so I ended up going to Stanford, doing the Stanford Biodesign program, where it seems that I was not the only person, that I was not completely the awkward duck. And I switched my career from focusing on actively practicing medicine to be an active player in the medical device and digital health innovation space, and also a lot focused on education. And so I ended up, I joined a firm called Manat, Phelps & Phillips. It's a legal and a professional services firm. And what's really unique about them, and why I think they're a really good fit with me, is that they encourage that type of thinking of working in in very diverse types of settings, working with different clients and different aspects, a lot around innovation. And so we don't only work with companies under digital health services and products, but we also work with large academic medical centers on redesigning their education. And that's something that I've always had a lot of passion for, and what I also did at Ircad was focusing on how can we incorporate a innovation mindset into our curriculums.
Wow, great. So, Dennis, tell me how many companies are you working now, and how many people are you getting together in this idea to create innovation?
Yeah. So, gosh, in my history, in my background, I've started, I guess, 5 companies now. All kind of in the life science space. And so that, I started out in biotechnology. We were doing drugs to accelerate tissue regeneration. And then I started Apollo, as you described, Armando, which was a really exciting 14-year journey where we were attempting to, and I think successfully, transforming surgery, which was really just great, which is how I got to meet Vivian, and frankly, how I got to meet all of you, I think, because if you're trying to innovate in surgery, you have to work with Ircad. It started a walk for me, which has been very good. So now, Armando, I've moved over, having been an entrepreneur most of my life. I've now shifted over and I work in venture capital. And so I work for a venture fund called Sante, and we're a life science investor. We focus on early stage investment. So, we're typically taking an idea out of a university or out of a lab and then trying to build a team and turn it into a company. And so I really enjoy it. Right now I'm involved in 4 companies that I've invested in through Sante. I get to work with a lot of young entrepreneurs and inspiring people. And that's been great. And then we also at Sante, we will start our own companies. And so right now I'm working on 3 or 4 different NewCo startup concepts. I have a small team that works with me here, and we look at areas of innovation. We find areas that are interesting to us, and then we try to find a way to start a company and build teams and entrepreneurs. So it's a very how do you say, grassroots type of entrepreneurship that we're doing, which I'm very passionate about. I strongly believe that innovation, it starts in the lab. It starts with the research, of course, but for innovation really to make a difference, it takes people and entrepreneurs who are willing to get that innovation out into the world for innovation to make a difference.
Well, in the other hand, so Wayne in Taiwan has a Ircad center also, and Taiwan is a unique island because they are very advanced in terms of computer science and innovation, and I believe the combination of these things move them to create innovations. And I want to ask with you 3 together from the point of view, because you walk in this pathway, Dennis, and probably Vivian also, and Wayne is in the other side, because you were before creating the idea and making a product, and now you are, on the other hand, you are investing in the product that are already ready. And so how do you pick a good idea? Is it, well, for the people that are outside of this field, it looks like that is a gamble game. So you bet in something and it works, and probably the chance of failure is much higher than the success. Mm-hmm. And so how you deal with that, and how it works from the initial process until the not the product, but something that can be a good idea. So who is going to start? Vivian, Dennis, please.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think actually Wayne probably has some of the better perspective. I mean, all of us approach innovation and entrepreneurship from our own chairs. But it's challenging for me since I'm not a surgeon and since I don't work in a hospital, sometimes to understand what an innovation has to accomplish to kind of move through and make a difference. So Wayne, you guys have been passionate about taking a very hospital-centric and surgeon-centric approach to innovation, and have actually started many of your own companies. That might be an interesting place to start. And then Vivian and I can talk as to what happens after.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have. So maybe I start a little bit of my path to where I am now, because I'm still a surgeon and I still practice surgery, although less and less. Uh, and then started to be involved with Ircad, so I became like an educator. Like I always thought that I want to be a surgeon, educator, and that's enough. That's a lot of work already to run. But somehow the idea of like getting more and more involved in entrepreneurs, I just usually thought that that's not an area that I can work in because I have no training in business, no accounting or investment. I don't know what the numbers are. So, you know, and surgeons were not taught to count numbers. We just treat patients. So it's very different path. But as you mature as a surgeon and then you become the hospital administrator, you know, it's a part of life that you need to get involved in. And then started to have some companies that we come up with from our research lab. Now starting to realize that it's why I then kind of became kind of a part-time venture capitalist now, and I'm involved in a fund in Taiwan. Created one fund in Taiwan myself with a partner. Started to look at a lot of companies, to meet a lot of entrepreneurs. I think the reason why I kind of gravitate toward this area is really, I think, kind of what Dennis mentioned is, and also Vivian mentioned, is that you really enjoy working with these kind of people. Like they're very driven, they're motivated, they're very, very smart, and they want to make something happen out of an idea. So that's also takes a lot of courage. So when I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, startup companies, founders, there are all these kinds of people. So it's a kind of a work that I enjoy, and I'm willing to dedicate my time to help the startup companies, because from my standpoint, I've been practicing surgery for almost 15 years, and also we have a training center in Asia that is doing a lot of training, and we have a hospital setting that is so all these elements are really good plus for startup companies to work with. And I want to make all these resources available and open up these resources to startup companies, because that is something that they really need. And in Taiwan, it's not easy to get. I'm not sure how easy it is to access these kind of resources for startup companies in United States. I assume there are also some barriers, but in Taiwan, usually there are a lot of even cultural obstacles because some hospital administrators, they forbid their doctors, their employees to be involved in entrepreneurship, because I think that will takes away from their time to treat patients. I think it's really the work, the people I really enjoy working with. That's how I got into here. And how I pick companies, I think maybe Vivian and Dennis can also elaborate on that, because I have really just almost less than a year of experience of doing that. I think it's not like you see one person and they do one pitch to you and then you decide to marry them. It's like you will kind of work with them for 3 months or 6 months. You do due diligence, and you kind of get to know them as a person and their track record, and then when we invest in a company, we also want to kind of work along, really partner with them, and kind of I feel like I'm an employee that's not paid by the company. I'm spending all this time talking to them and trying to pull all the strings for them. So it's kind of interesting. I become like, even though I'm not one of the company employees, but I feel like I'm one of the founders of the company. So it's a kind of a really satisfying feeling as well, to see a company that I'm kind of working with grow at a steady speed. Yeah.
Okay. Vivian, you were in the still in Stanford Biodesign. So someone come with idea and then you develop something. How it works over there? Because before be a successful company or develop something, it comes with an idea and a lot of people work together. How works Stanford Biodesign facility?
Yeah, and so biodesign, it's fun because biodesign works very similar as how we work at Monad. And so what we think about innovation about it, we take more of a holistic approach. And so rather than just looking at a particular silo of, is it checking a box for, if there's a payment, is there a market, etc. We try to take a much more of a holistic approach and see, are they checking all of the boxes for the entire ecosystem? And so we think more in ecosystems and how can we position the technology or the service right at the right moment, right time, and for all these different players, rather than just looking at a very siloed approach. And so that's both for biodesign as for Monad. It's not just checking one box; it's checking all the boxes and making sure they're cohesive as well.
Do you believe that to build science it has to be this way, or you have to be specific in something? It means that if it's not a good idea, I'm not go embedding the process by itself, or it should be a good idea, because you never know if it's a good idea or not. How it works over there?
Well, I think that's the beauty of the biodesign process. It kind of takes innovation. Well, first of all, it makes it more from an art. It turns it into more of a science, right? So it's a structured process, and it's a really good pre-marketing kind of tool of trying to understand, does it check all the different boxes? Who are all the different stakeholders involved? What are their incentives? What do we need to develop? How long is it going to look like? How much money is it going to take? Et cetera, before you actually start, or very early on when you start developing the technology. So then if you notice that there is a big kill, you can easily pivot still at that moment in time and potentially switch to something that does meet the broader ecosystem needs.
Well, let us suppose that I had a great idea and I want to transform this idea in something, but as Wayne said, we as a surgeon, we know nothing about development, business, and money. So we should be my pathway.
Yes, Armando, you need a shepherd.
Call me. No. Or Dennis.
I think Armando, you highlight kind of the classic way that innovation starts, particularly in medicine. Because the person who's closest to the need is typically the surgeon or the physician. So, you're in there doing a surgical procedure. You have a problem, you see a need, and you want to develop something. But to your point, you've never done it before, and you have a full-time job working for your hospital and doing your procedures. So, again, that's where partnering with an entrepreneur makes a lot of sense. And finding somebody who has experience, or finding a group that has experience, like Vivian's group, or finding an investor group like what Wayne has developed, of just finding a partner who will share your vision, and somebody who gets excited about your technology and about your innovation and is willing to commit their lives to it. When I started Apollo, Overstitch, the suturing device, was not my idea. It was the idea of a handful of gastroenterologists and surgeons who wanted the ability to suture during endoscopy. And so, they found me and we started talking about this, and I got very excited and passionate about what that would do. And I ended up dedicating 14 years of my life to it. I spent more time on their innovation dream than they did. And that's the process of how our ecosystem works. And so, I think the first thing is to find a good partner like that. But also, that's also where, we talk, and we all know each other through the BEST courses. And, the vision of BEST, when Vivian and Silvana and the team at IHU and Ircad decided to develop the BEST course, it was to try to provide a basic toolkit for an innovator to think through like what are the basic steps I need to think about as I develop my innovation. And we did our first best course in Barretos this past December, and it was a spectacular, I think, foray of innovation and an example of, you give people kind of some basic direction and basic support. They can really come up and do amazing things. But yeah, it just takes a lot of work, and it takes good partnerships to make an innovation successful.
Well, with which drive you? Is it only passion? Because you talk about when you talk about Apollo, the tone of your voice is related to passion. I can feel that in Vivian also, and when they talk about some project that they are developing. Is it the most important drive for you?
Yeah, for me it is. I think I think it has to be, because it's a really long process. You're most likely not going to make money off of it. And so, it better be something that you enjoy and you feel is going to make a difference. For me personally, I don't get passionate about what we call incremental innovation. So small little pieces of innovation, they're important. It is important that we keep kind of constantly moving things through. I'm more passionate about breakthrough innovation, about really transformative things. And, again, the reason I get excited about Apollo, because Apollo was taking surgery from something that was using rigid laparoscopic instruments to something that was using flexible instruments. And that was, I thought, a really big change. And some of the ideas that we're working on at Sante are what I believe transformational that way as well. So for me, it's the passion of it. And I think if you don't have that, during the long nights and winters of your startup experience, it's going to be really hard to motivate yourself if you don't kind of share, have that core drive.
Okay. So, Vivian, tell me about one of your passions in innovation. Well, one history related to something that you believe that were well done, beside best.
That's a good question. Well, kind of also going back to what drives us as a group and being in the innovation space. I think besides passion, it's a lot also curiosity, and that's like really the fun part of things, of being curious and kind of nurturing. And I joke around often with Dennis and Wayne and the rest of the crew, of kind of nurturing that 5-year-old inside of you, and really embracing creativity and just being in a very interesting and new learning environment. And so it also, being in an innovation space also asks you to be kind of uncomfortable and in unknown territories. And so that's another thing that makes it fun, but not always makes it the right fit for everyone. Regarding things that I think were done really well, I would have to think about that a little bit more. I think there are a lot of exciting technologies. I think it's currently a very exciting field for digital health, for surgical and non-surgical specialties.
Yes.
And I think that there's a lot of opportunity right now. And we work with tons of startups and also larger corporations in that space that are developing really exciting technologies, and not only products, but also service models. And that's, I think, something that in the past, or at least within surgery, we're always very much focused on device. And I think now an interesting shift to new innovative service models within providing surgical care. I think that's something that's new and upcoming and provides a lot of new perspectives.
Well, let us. Well, we are living a moment in our lives in the world related to this social distance, and it moves or press a lot of people to get into technology field, because they have to learn how to use their apps, and they have to learn how to use the communication as we are doing now, and before was we talk about video conferencing, and they said, oh, this is boring, I don't want that, it's better to have a personal meeting or everybody together in the same room. But this cannot happen now because we are facing the world, and this pandemic change a little bit some word concepts. And you are an innovator, probably working in this type of changing of process. So is it necessary to something happen as a pandemic to change the point of view or the mind of people to understand where we have to move, or this is a something that you can drive the future? It doesn't matter what's going to happen. You can try to drive the future. How do you think about that? The question is for you three.
Well, I would say, I mean, you know, certainly the COVID pandemic has been a challenge for everyone. You know, everybody, you know, we had our working styles and our working relationships, and you're right, Armando. You know, nothing beats in person, but we can't do that now, and so we've all adapted. And I mean, this type of event, even we're doing now, we couldn't have done a year ago. I mean, it would have taken Luis 30 minutes to figure out the microphone. So, you know, now, you know, everybody is very familiar with these with these things. So I think we've adapted. But I think more broadly, if you look at healthcare and you look at healthcare delivery, and you know, I'd be very interested here, Wayne and Vivian's thoughts on this too. But I think, you know, before COVID, I think a lot of people had a vision of healthcare that was much more accessible and much more democratized. So that, you know, no matter where you were in the world, you should be able to get access to really high quality healthcare. And that was not the case. I think actually one of the benefits that has come out of COVID, it has forced us to think about access to healthcare in a very different way. So, you know, not only, you know, does that mean that, you know, just the way we interact, but, you know, how I interact with my physician, you know, how I think about diagnostics, you know, that's all been completely changed. We have a company at Sante that called Remedy, and Remedy is basically doing virtual telehealth with house calls. And so, as you can imagine, they were doing that before COVID, but after COVID, when no one wants to leave their house and you have a medical issue, the ability to do a Zoom call and then have somebody show up at your house to safely help you, that's the way medicine is going to be in the future. And you're seeing this, you know, in many areas. You're seeing it in surgery, you know, with virtual proctoring and virtual case access. I mean, so I think in some ways this has helped accelerate some of the innovation that needed to happen, so that no matter where you are in your world, you can access high quality surgical innovation, which is, frankly, that's been the mission of Ircad since its beginning, is democratizing surgical skill and surgical education around the world. And I actually think this is going to help push us that way faster.
Well, I believe that maybe 1.5 years or 2 years ago, I went to US and I saw the Best Buy. No, they were selling a small kit. I don't have kids anymore, but they said that, oh, if you have a problem with your kid, you can examine your ear, your mouth, and everything, and a pediatrician will be connected to you and gonna say if you need to go to the hospital to emergency or not. And so I said, oh, wow, it looks like a good idea, but who is gonna buy that? Because everybody, there is no trust in this kind of thing. Everybody's gonna want to go and see the doctor personally, and it looks like this was no, at the beginning, from what we are living now. And we as a surgeon, I can interact with the patient, but it's very difficult to me to collect information for the clinical exam. And so, probably you are creating some tools to improve that, or is this gonna be the future? Because if you go to China, you enter in a kind of a telephone box, and you speak with someone, and you have your medication at the end of the appointment. And is this going to be a drive-through medicine? This is where are we going to be? What do you think about that?
Well, kind of to reflect on it, and also what Dennis said before, is that we're seeing a real shift from costly in-hospital type of care to at-home health. And COVID, COVID, the pandemic obviously has been absolutely terrible for everyone, but was definitely a catalyzing factor with it. Because it also got payers and policy behind it. So there was already like as what you were expressing, Amanda, like an interest somewhere from consumers and patients of like, of what is this and this is interesting, etc. But now it really has gone that payers and policy are behind it, which allows that these services are being paid for by insurance, etc. And so that will be a very important, at least in the US, a very critical factor for sustaining it also in the longer term.
So this also an important relationship because here in Brazil they are trying to change the culture because it used to be fee for service, and they want to change the way that they pay for the quality of the service. So the quality that is inside of the service, not something like you put some codes and receive by codes, but you receive by the service that you deliver and probably by the outcomes that you deliver. That is more important than the service by itself. So you said before that is a entire environment involving in the innovation. And Wayne worked with a company that holds some hospitals, and we see that the payers, they want to or trying to put the patient more outside of the hospital. We are trying to do more ambulatory procedures than inside hospital procedures, probably because of the cost or some other reasons. What do you think about this type of thing? Wayne, do you want to answer?
So
Is innovation is going to help us? Well, with gadgets for patients in home. Can I do a colectomy and deliver the patient 24 hours and follow this patient in home with some innovation?
I think definitely, but I think the technology is not a problem. So I work with a lot of, Taiwan has a strong ICT sector, and they really benefited hugely from this because they are making all the webcams, they are making laptops, they are now selling like crazy, and but at the same time they are really putting a huge unprecedented amount of effort to develop digital health, these companies, because they see that healthcare is one segment, one business that can somehow stay in demand no matter what kind of situation arises. So there are a lot of exciting developments in device and monitoring things, gadgets that can help digital health. But I think the most important thing is the payer and the environment. If the government policies and the insurance companies are willing to pay, for example, if you want to see patients from their home with some device that can check the eye, the ear, the throat, or the skin, or you want to have a monitoring device and discharge the patient one day after surgery, and the device can monitor everything. And if there's no problem, then that's great. You save a ton of money for everybody. But I think you need to kind of have the whole environment kind of changed, and that is kind of the COVID situation is giving everybody, including policymakers, insurance companies, really a deep thought into how we should change our fundamental ways of doing things to make that happen. Yeah.
Well, you are creating the future or betting in the companies that are going to create the future. So when we see, well, I'm going to return back to my childhood. And I remember well that I see the Jetsons on the televisions, and they had a cell phone. They had flying sauce cars, and well, they print the food, and we it's a 3D printing food, and the healthcare was by television, and you enter into the machine, and the machine could do all of this. So it looks like that we are kind of approaching of this thing. Is that correct? Because well, 3D printing is something that is really helping. Well, here in Brazil, in Rio, we have a lot of oil companies, and they are based in the middle of the ocean. So they don't have sparing parts of some something. If they need something, they print in metal inside of the place. And so it looks like that this is a kind of crazy thing. Why I'm speaking about that? Because we never imagined that in the past. We imagined that, oh, I have to hold all these spare parts in my room, otherwise I'm not going to have it. So do you believe that healthcare is gonna move to this through this area, thinking about the future? We are gonna live the Jetsons life, are we?
Armando, I think in the not too distant future, that 3D printer on that oil rig will be able to print a kidney. I think we're moving that direction. And I love your story about the Jetsons. The analogy I use, and actually it's an exercise that we do when we're thinking of innovation, and we call it the Star Trek exercise. And so when you're thinking about,
you are more advanced, Star Trek. I like
a little
it.
more advanced than the Jetsons. But like, how would Dr. Scott, how would Dr. Bones, solve a medical problem on the Starship Enterprise? What would it look like?
Just hold on. I remember well when they returned back to 20th century, and the girl was doing dialysis, the old lady, and he thought, oh my God, these butchers, and he gave a pill, and then she was cured. And so just to get into the history of Star Trek.
Yes, I think you're exactly right. And so that's the mental exercise sometimes that we like to do when we're thinking about innovation, because right now, a lot of times I find that, when we're thinking about medical innovation, we get stuck to how it's been done in the past, right? So, if we've always done surgery one way, when we think about a solution to innovate, our basis sometimes is that surgery. And so we're thinking again of these incremental things. But technology outside of us is moving so much more quickly. The processing power and artificial intelligence, and we can now have a high definition video camera in the palm of our hands. With this, I have the entire knowledge of our human society. I have access to on this now. I mean, think about that. These things were not possible before. So I think a lot of times when we're trying to really do breakthrough innovation, kind of freeing our minds, from the way the dogma and the way that things have been done in the past, maybe it still needs to be needs driven, but I think that the solution set and the technologies out there are enabling so much more that we did not think was capable. We were capable of before. 3D printing food, we're going to be 3D printing solid organs. These are things that are doable. They're not in practice now, but they're things that are in research now that are doable. So I'm very excited about that. Now, does that mean that every procedure that you guys do in surgery today is going to be replaced by a pill? I don't think so. But could those procedures be replaced by less invasive or non-invasive techniques? Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's 20, 30, 40 years. But I think you're already seeing that. And we can talk about some of those innovations as we go, but I'm very excited about it.
Well, you capture my mind now, because you worked before with tissues, creating tissues, and now you are speaking about printing kidney. Well, where are we going? Can I have a new liver? I can drink all my life, and then at the end I can change my liver. Well, good wines, not bad ones, and good maybe whiskeys from Taiwan, Cavalan, top one. What do you think?
I think for every best course, they should offer a free liver.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting comment, Armando, and I love also the analogy of the Jetsons. It feels like that we're till now almost pre-COVID, where we're still stuck in the Flintstones, and we're finally moving a little bit forward towards the Jetsons. But I think another very important element to not just start that innovation movement, but also to sustain it is to incorporate it in our education. And so, and this is not just in medical education, but I think across the board, also for health policy, legal types of disciplines, et cetera, of how can we instill that innovation mindset? Because, you know, one of the big challenges is we're just a couple of those larger group of people that are trying to fight and implement new things. And it is really important to start kind of a movement. And so it's not just for physicians, engineers, but also for policymakers. I mean, think about, you have to in order to get to a point where you're able to 3D print your own devices in a hospital, et cetera, you need in the United States, you need the FDA to stand behind it. And so you need to also instill that mindset with them as well.
Well,
so
I have a question in this topic because, well, it is funny or sad, but the Brazilian Council of Medicine a year and a half ago, they forbidden to do telemedicine. They said this is not good. Wow. We are going to create something different. And now in the pandemic area, everybody was pushed for that because it was the unique way. And so how do you think that this balance? For example, the regulatory agencies like FDA or CA or even the councils to accept a new thing or to say that, oh, this is not going to be good. Is it a kind of, well, how to protect the market, or is something more than that? What do you think about it as an innovator?
Oh, I see Dennis he's itching to say something. Yeah, personally, I think it goes back, you know.
Well, it's a free, it's a...
yeah, I personally, like, I remember of what I loved, you know, back in medical school, and I was doing a clinical rotation in psychiatry, which I very much enjoyed. And, but one of my educators, he said, crisis or being in a crisis is sometimes extremely healthy and allows you to completely kind of build up from scratch. And so I think these types of crises will push us, you know, it will continue to push us to change things and do things very abruptly in a new way. But again, going back to education, I think that is much more of the long-term and kind of the more stable and sustainable way of implementing new thoughts and ideas. But I'll pass it off to Dennis because he was so eager.
No, it's fine. It's such a great question, Armando, because you know, disruption's hard. You know, disruption is hard on existing ecosystems, and you know, you look at hell, you look at energy, right? You know, when we shifted from coal to natural gas and now to renewables. I mean, those are big disruptions, and can change a lot for the people and impact people's lives in a negative way, and certainly medicine as well. I mean, you look at cardiology, and how the life of the cardiac surgeon almost completely disappeared with interventional radiology. That was ultimately better for patients. It was better for the healthcare system globally. It wasn't good if you're a cardiac surgeon. And so, there's always going to be resistance to that type of disruptive innovation. I personally feel my role, and I think, I would say that Wayne and Vivian feel the same. Our role is to do this disrupting. We're going to go disrupt. We're going to push. We're going to push for these changes. And if we're successful in doing that, the world has to adjust. And that's how innovation works. It's not easy, though. I think that, there are pretty significant barriers that get set up to disruptive innovation, particularly in medicine. And a lot of times it's shielded behind patient safety and shielded behind other excuses for it. But oftentimes it's just protecting your turf. And I think we're very cognizant of that as entrepreneurs, and so we're always thinking through like, well, if we're going to go disrupt this market, like how do we do that in a way that kind of minimizes the stress and anxiety for the people that we're disrupting? So that's how we like to think about it. But to some extent, I mean, we just have to keep pushing, and the world has to adjust to that. We're not going back. Like telemedicine is here to stay now. I can't imagine that we're going to go back to a world where you can't get reimbursed for talking to your doctor on a video conference. That's crazy now. Hopefully that will change people's mindsets around some of these innovations.
Yeah, even inside of the hospital, I remember there was maybe 5 or 7 years ago, companies with the robots that could see the patient at the bedside instead of the doctor going over there personally. And this allowed to the doctor to see the patient 3-4 times per day. And what is not possible, because if you are the other side of the place, and here in Brazil is something that is difficult. And now it looks like this is a little bit more real and more close to our reality, because everybody is accepting to be connected by video conferencing. What I want to ask you,
Armando,
is that,
can I have a question? Yes. Just one comment, just to remember one thing. That's my question is, we are working in Brazil and Latin America, and you have people from Africa also watching us, and people from Europe. So one question that I have is, we have so many difficulties to bring this new technology to Latin America and Africa also. In your opinion, and as investor or as a creator or to thinking about new technologies, how can I improve this new technology to arrive more earlier in Latin America? How can I read? Because you have people, not only doctors watching us, but you have people from owners of a startup, people that was watching us here, and they would like to ask to hear how we can improve this new technology more faster in Latin America. What's the problem that Wayne and Vivian and Dennis see in Latin America, the problems and the Africa to reach us?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. I think the problem is that we come with our mindset and our technologies and trying to implant it in something what is not our environment. And so I think it's much more important rather that we focus on bringing our technology to these other places, saying we need to educate and train people in these places to develop their own technologies. And so I think that creates on the longer term a much more sustainable and long-term type of system for them, rather than us trying to force something to enter a country that does not necessarily meet their needs or their ecosystem.
Yeah, I think in Taiwan, when I try to help with these companies, one thing is some of the obstacles that I see in Asia is a lack of funding, support. So, but of course, I think with the advanced technologies now, probably some of the technologies are easier to scale up because they're lowering the cost rapidly. And so I think what's needed is to create this kind of ecosystem within the local regions to be able to support the wide implementation. So that's what I'm trying to build in Taiwan and in some of the Southeast Asian countries, because when you have startup companies, they have disruptive technology. Some are from states, some are from Taiwan. When they want to be widely implemented, there are 10 different countries, or so many different cultural differences and regulatory differences in Asia, that it's hard to you cannot just call up distributors in every country and ask them to sell it for you. You have to kind of build that ecosystem of network that can support the success of this companies. So I think maybe these are more well established in the mature markets, but in early in markets like Africa or Latin America, I think that's one very big obstacle that's being needed. Like if you are able to create a good ecosystem in Latin America through Ircad Africa or Ircad Brazil, that if we have a really nice technology that's been proven in states in Asia, then it can be easily implemented, and that would be a very good, it's an amazing way to implement some of the disruptive companies.
And Luis, I mean, I guess the only thing I would add is, having, at Apollo, we had a similar issue where we had a device that we were developing in the United States, and there was interest around the world for it. It wasn't a surgeon or physician skill issue. We actually find a lot of times the skill level of the surgeons internationally is better than what we have on a base level in the United States. I mean, there's tremendous capability out there. So that's not the burden. I think the burden is more that right now, if you're a young startup company with an interest in innovation, getting it into Latin America or parts of Asia, it's what I would call a push. You're having to push the technology in there. You're having to figure out who's your distributor. You're having to figure out the regulatory. You have to figure out how to sell to the hospital. You have to figure out who's to pay for it. And you just don't have the time and money and capacity as the small company to do all that work. So you tend to do it in order, right? You say, okay, you're going to go to typically Europe or United States first, and then once you do that, you kind of start going down the list, and then eventually you go. That's how it's traditionally been. So my advice would be, well, how do you change that? I think if countries could start developing pathways where it's a much more of a pull, where the distributors are aligned with the hospitals, are aligned with the physicians, and you have the training and the regulatory and all that set up. So basically, Luis, you come to me and say, I want a device, I want OverStitch. Here's our order for 200 units, and we are going to get the regulatory for you, and here's the certificate. You would find innovation moving much more quickly into your countries. And I think that would be, and that's a fairly simple thing to do, but it's hard because every country has unique nuances into how you get commercialized there.
And Armando, just one question, not question. I was reading here, and Jetsons, they start in 1962, and they are thinking in 100 forwards. So we are waiting 2062, these kind of cars, but they
flying cars. Where's our flying cars?
So we are waiting, but in 2062.
I hope be alive over there, but I don't think so. Well, this is when you think about to implement something or to create something, the majority of times, my question for you is that, do you have a dimension of what you are doing in terms of just being disruptive? Do you really feel that when you create something, is going to be a real disruption from what they are doing now? Or it's just something that happened by chance? Do you plan that? What I'm speaking that, because, robotic surgery start more than 20 years ago. And so they start a small company, and now it's spreading. And in Brazil, and 5 years ago, we have only 3-4 machines, and now it's all 70, almost 80 machines. And so it's changing the market. So what do you think? Do you think that when you plan something like that, do you really imagine that this is going to happen, or this is something that happens by chance?
I think it depends when you ask the entrepreneur. If you ask him after it's already been globally successful, I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg will tell you that he knew all along that Facebook would be a spectacular global success. But my guess is when he first started, he thought of it as a very specific innovation. So I don't know. I think in medicine, it's actually a little bit easier to look ahead and estimate whether an innovation will be really disruptive or not. Because I think we know, because the existing protocols are so well understood, that if I have, like, you mentioned robotic surgery, or let's take something like HIFU, or energy intervention, where, like, like, if it works, we don't know if it's going to be as effective or those things, but if it is, that is revolutionary, because a patient is always going to want something that you tell me you don't have to cut me at all, and you can ablate something and I can have the same outcomes. I'm going to sign up for that. So I think it's easier to predict whether something, if successful, will be a breakthrough. I think in medicine, it's harder to predict whether it's going to be successful in doing so, if that makes sense.
Dennis, talking about venture capital, maybe sometimes you put your money in company that doesn't work. And
a lot of times we put our money into companies and it doesn't work.
How the investors, they deal with that? So because you have to convince people to bet in your project. How is it? I believe that's not an easy conversation. So it means that it doesn't happen. So
no, failures happen. We estimate that when we make an investment, there's a 50% chance that we lose all of our money. 50%. So the answer to that is, when we're right, we need to be really right. So when something's successful, we need to produce a high enough return that pays for the losses. And that typically, that fits into our thesis. So and it's kind of why at Sante we like doing more breakthrough innovations, because yes, they're a little riskier in terms of whether they're successful or not. But a breakthrough innovation, if it's successful, is going to generate a very high return. And that's going to pay for the 2 or 3 other companies you did that you put money in and lost everything. So that's the theory of the portfolio. But every venture fund has slightly different flavors of what they do. Some venture funds invest much later in the development cycle, so they think the risk is smaller. The return is smaller, usually, if you invest later, but the risk is smaller. So there's different theories.
Well, let us talk about investors. And when is the best time to put the money? When they just start and open and they have everything built on, or at the beginning? What do you think? Well, you know the answer. Vivian.
Well, there's no, I mean, we have our bias at Sante. At Sante, we say it's best to go early, but we're a minority in that.
Dennis, I want to ask you, like you have a wide range of experience in different areas of health technology, but probably your most expertise is in medical device, since you have gone through the whole process yourself. But when you make an investment, do you kind of only invest in the companies that you feel you're most familiar with, or even if if there's a company that comes out to you with for example, I'm not sure if you're familiar or not with maybe genetic testing or some cancer drug, or and that probably you have no experience with. And they look so good. Do you invest in them or?
So ironically, when I became a venture capitalist last year, I thought that my investments would all be medical device and in surgery, because these are things that I know the best. Of the 4 investments I've made, actually 2 of them are biotech. One is type 2 diabetes, a company called Glycend. Another company is one called Nairogi, which is doing small molecules for cancer therapy and neurodegenerative diseases. I'm not an expert in that. And the other two, one was a digital health, one's a digital health company working on actually perioperative surgical assessment. So you tend to do a little bit of both, right? I mean, I think to be a good investor, you have to be able to be diverse in the opportunities that you invest in. And I would think in Taiwan, you actually have to be even more skilled at that because you don't know where necessarily the really big innovation is going to come from. So I don't know. My screen is, I feel that I have to be able to understand it well enough to know, one, the impact it's going to make on the market, and two, that I can explain it to my investment partners as to what is special about this and what do we have to prove that it's special. And so that ability to translate is always very important for me because I don't care how complicated the science is. At the end of the day, a patient's going to have to benefit. And if you can tell me and explain how that patient will benefit and then how the business comes from that, then the rest of it, you can kind of build your milestones and let the milestones in the science determine for you, as opposed to having to predict it. It's impossible to predict where some of the science goes sometimes. So that's how I think about it, at least.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I believe that this is just the beginning of the conversation because we let the big conversation and explain all the process. And in fact, to talk about BEST in our next section. And BEST is this very important process developed to teach people how to do that. And I was really surprised last year in Barretos when I personally could see and feel the energy behind and putting people together. They are not familiar with medical health or something, and they have a challenge to accomplish. And this is really, really nice to see how it works. And as Vivian said at the beginning, so you want to change not the idea by itself, but is a complete environment that holds everything together. And I really want to thank you, Wayne, Dennis, and Vivian for your time to share some experience today with us. And this is just the beginning of the conversation, at the beginning of the process, because we have BEST in Taiwan, France, and I hope more and more in Brazil. So thank you very much. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Armando and Luis, for inviting us. It's always an absolute pleasure to see you all and the chat.
Thank you, Armando, Luis. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, and muito obrigado. And we look forward to the BEST course in person in December in Barretos. And Wayne, sorry we can't do it in person. We would have just been finishing BEST Taiwan this past week. And so sorry not to do it in person, but look forward to the virtual course end of the month. So.
Okay, thank you guys. Just to say that the BEST course in Barretos will be in December 14th to 18th. So we expect that everybody will be here personally because it's impossible to stay one more month in this way. I hope see you soon, and thank you for this opportunity. We have a lot of people watching us. I have to say thank you for all the teams, the Ircad in France, Ircad Africa, Ircad Taiwan, and Ircad Latin America, include Rio and here Barretos, all the AV team, and the translation team also, because we had translation for Portuguese and Spanish also. So thank you for all the team, because nothing will be possible without this this team. Thank you again, and hope to see you soon, guys. Thank you. And I think that 15 days we have it in new live, or 20 days. So everybody watching us in Ircad's webpage, in Facebook and YouTube. And see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.